Well, Dave Weiner, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, I do too. So first of all, thank you, Scott Guitarist Engel, for lining this up. Scott's working with you and your folks really hard to get this lined up. So we're appreciative that you're here today.
Absolutely. Yeah, happy to. Again, you never have to twist my arm to just sit and relax and talk guitar.
I know. Well, that's the funny thing. So it's almost like a studio show because on the studio show we'll hang out and we'll break bread and have drinks together for
Yep.
an hour before we start taping, and you and I were just bullshitting for about 10 minutes or so, you
Yep.
know. And
No.
and by the way, cheers.
Cheers. Yeah. Cheers. Clink.
Here, Clayton, yeah, right.
Oh
So
yeah.
I said beforehand, you're loyal to your great state of Pennsylvania. You've got some Yingling going on.
That's right. That's
And I'm
right.
disloyal to this country. Not disloyal, but I'm drinking my Guinness. Nothing to do with the United States. There we go.
Guinness is fantastic.
Yes, it's my favorite beer. Um, so there's so much to talk about with you. But I want to start with something that I read today that I really enjoyed. And I'll be like the lawyer with my legal pad and look at my notes. So this was from Guitar World, and I loved it. You said, "What brings me joy is getting this stuff done and going out and playing it." And I
Yeah.
loved that you know it's always about the joy, right?
You know, I think we could get into an existential conversation,
Oh, let's do it.
but I think most people at some point in their life
Yeah.
realize the purpose is
Mhm.
joy, is enjoyment.
Right, right.
We get so sidetracked from that from the beginning
Yeah.
because, and I don't know how it is elsewhere, growing up outside of the States. I grew up here, obviously. Um, but it's just hammered in our heads, at least in my head, that you got to get good grades and you have to get a good job so that you can
Mhm.
just make that American dream happen. Of course, that means many different things, but it imparted a bit of, just push anything else aside because you have to do the work and etc.
Right.
That can lead to, and I mean, it's just a fact, most people are not into their jobs. Most people just do
Absolutely.
it for the
Yep.
money.
Mhm.
It's not the enjoyment. And
Yeah.
so you spend a third of your life sleeping, you spend a third of your life or more working for something you're not
Yeah.
enjoying just to keep the lights on, and
Yeah.
then you've got a little bit of time left to enjoy. And for most people that's a vacation
Getting
once a
away
year.
from the other two-thirds of your life.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and it's just, I get it. I totally understand that. Believe me, being a musician is not the easiest life,
Right.
if you're going to do it full time. But like anything else, if you love what you're doing, it's just enjoyment.
Right.
And I always thought, when I'm 90 whatever, or if hopefully I make it that far, I don't want to be looking back at my life and say, well, I kept the lights on,
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy myself, but I had some money and blah blah blah. I know it's a hard thing to actually do, but that's all I'll do. I
Right.
don't really, and well, no, I'm not going to say that, because I was going to say I don't care about money, I don't care about material things, and I really don't. But I know how that sounds,
Right.
because it's like the only people that say that are the people that have it.
Right. Right. Right.
But believe me, that all of this in back of me, it's just a matter of hard work. I gave up my childhood essentially to become competent on the guitar, uh, and this is all the result of endorsements.
Right.
I'm not out there spending lavishly to have a whole bunch of gear. It's just this is I truly, I just don't I don't need the fancy car and a huge house and all this other stuff. I would rather enjoy myself
Right.
and not
Right.
put that other pressure on me. And anybody who follows Vi has heard him talk about one principle that he's always lived by, that I've coincidentally, before I even knew him, I've always lived by, and it was always just live a bit below your means,
Mm-hmm.
and you never have a bad night of sleep in your life. And I just kind of continue. Maybe that's why I just like Yingling, because I can go to Wegmans and get a 12 pack for $10.
Right. That's true. It's true. And you know what? It tastes good. I was telling you before we started taping, we were in Billtown, otherwise known as Williamsport. And out of our love and loyalty for Pennsylvania, we got ourselves a case of Yingling and just sat around a campfire, played a little guitar,
Nice,
and drank our Yingling.
nice, yeah.
There is a video from one of our trips there, right before COVID hit. We're
Mhm.
sitting around a campfire doing exactly that, and the chair just exploded from underneath me, and I end up on the ground, and we still don't know why. But yeah, it's those simple things,
Yeah.
um, and it's beautiful that you built your life around that. The other thing I thought of that I think that that part of our little conversation was sort of trending toward is when you're in school. I know this happened to me, and it continued into the law,
Mhm.
which is what I do. They're always trying. They meaning, those in authority, trying to
Mhm.
box us in.
Mhm.
They have this vision, um, that this is the way things are supposed to be. And if you live within this box, you will have the life that I'm not happy with, but the life that I recommend for you. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
well, it's like when my law firm, I put up my website and I did very different kind of things for my website. A dear friend of mine called me, who's a fellow attorney, and he said, my wife is a law firm marketer. She thinks your website sucks. And he said it with a chuckle, but he was trying to help me. And I
Sure.
said, I think it's going to work, and it did because it's a
Mhm.
little different.
Sure.
But do you get those pressures, or have you historically to sort of work outside? Like if you have your vision of your life as this, do you have people trying to kind of do that to you, whether you're 10 years old or 15 or 30?
Yeah. It's an interesting thing that you just really, I think everyone should take some courses in human behavior and psychology and all this stuff, because everything is a reflection. You look at
Right,
other people and you try and identify yourself in them.
right, right,
Your spouses and your best friends are usually of the same ilk,
right,
you
right.
know? To the point with spouses where a lot of spouses, you ever notice a lot of spouses look alike?
I had when I was in law school, my girlfriend and I, they thought we were brother and sister, but no one ever found out.
But it happens,
Yeah,
and it
yeah,
happens
yeah,
for a reason.
yeah.
And like you said, you get people who want to project. Most of the time, it's very uh, what's the
Well
word I'm looking?
intentioned.
It's, well, yeah, the intentions are in the right spot. They want to help. They want to, well, you should try this, you should do this, and et cetera, et cetera. But you will never hear me say you should, because even in the guitar teaching that I do, I say you might want to try this, but try this, this, and this as well, because you have to
Mhm.
figure it out for yourself.
Right, right.
School, all the way through school, it's forced learning for the most
Yep,
part. It's
yep.
not an interest based system. And
No.
I understand they're trying to do their best to give you a well-rounded education and get you prepared for some things, but it leaves a lot of people at the end of college, one, grossly in debt anymore,
Mhm.
and two, on a path to spend their life doing something they don't want. And for whatever reason, when I was really young, I simply said, I am not going to work for anyone
Hmm.
for the most part. I just
Right,
said,
right,
I can't wake up every day and help someone else's dream come true.
right.
Now, I could also contradict myself as being in Steve Vai's band for 20 plus years, where I have helped him bring his music to life. So, but still, I'm out there serving my purpose.
No, but you're a piece of that. I mean, I appreciate the distinction, but you're on stage, and the people who aren't on stage are a piece of it also. But
Sure.
you're really central to that journey with him. I would think, as an outsider looking in.
Well, it's just I have a job that when I was young, when I was 10 and I started playing guitar, and I just said, I'm not going to work for anybody. I'm going to make a living with guitar. I didn't have specifics
Yeah,
involved in that scenario. It was just, if I can do this thing that I love doing,
yeah.
if I can just make a living doing that, then I'm succeeding for myself. I'm serving what I feel is my purpose.
And what's cool is the word you hear people use these days is you manifested it at age 10. Or you started manifesting at 10.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure.
which is
And
wonderful. Yeah,
well, I mean, it's very true. I mean, you have to visualize what you want to do, but then, manifestation is not just like, the secret.
yeah.
It's not an overnight thing.
It's
You
dirt
you
under your fingernails.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
have to put the work in with a
Yep.
very realistic plan of attack
Mhm.
and spend as much time as it takes to get you where it is. But along that journey, there's many other things that can help to serve the purpose. If you have a purpose that can be served in various ways, excuse me, like being a hired gun for a touring artist,
Right,
putting out your own records, teaching, doing clinics. There's a lot that can encompass I play guitar for a living.
right, right.
As long as I was doing that, I was fine. So don't get me wrong, there have been periods where I haven't appreciated my own path. I haven't appreciated the little things, and I didn't recognize the joy.
Right.
Everybody goes through that with their
Absolutely.
career arc. Um, but I'm happy now in a place of especially I think 2020 was a pivotal
It did
point
a
for a
lot
lot of
for, yeah.
people.
Hmm. Yeah.
To just be like, okay, this is a real thing, and it's a problem, and back to the existential side of things. I think it made people just say, am I doing what I want?
Right.
Because life
Yeah.
is short, and like that, it could, here's a virus, and etc. um, I think it made people reevaluate a lot of things, and it did for me as well. Um, just to kind of refocus and get more back to the first thing that you said, and back to that enjoyment.
Yeah.
If I narrow down my career path to what that enjoyment is, it
Mhm.
is ultimately the gigging side of things, the
Mhm.
concert side of things. Of course, before that, you have to have something to play, so there's the music creation. And
Right.
while the process itself might be a bear at times, the result is the reward, and then going and playing that. That to me, that's all I want. That's all I want to do. That's all I've ever wanted to do. I have done other things within the realm of my purpose, but they have brought less joy. So it does make you
Yeah.
like, it makes you really refine the intentions and make sure you're doing it. And it's as simple as that. Again, there are going to be varying levels of success, but to be on what anyone would consider their purposeful path, instead of going to a job you hate and etc. I just that to me is success. There's going to
Right.
be varying levels to it monetarily, and what the material side of society labels as successful. But
They're very different
I think
things.
if you can get past that and just recognize I'm doing what I want to be doing, that's success to me.
That's really beautiful. We could actually make a few shekels as a self-help tape with this because these are good, sincere sentiments. Um,
They
but
are,
it's like this show. We don't monetize. This show is just a big pile of love. It's literally what it is. We push it out there. We take it back. But that's all it is. It's just
yeah.
positivity. And you were talking before about sometimes when it's challenging. I came up with this thing not because of, but during when we were really self isolating during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
There are days when I and certainly we will have that battle to complete the day with gratitude and positivity.
Yeah,
But every day I would make sure I win that battle.
that's
All
great.
right, here we go. Here's the dog. He interferes with almost every Zoom show we do. But sometimes it's a battle.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes, you know, and I try to make it. I make a conscious effort to take stock of that which I should be appreciative of or have gratitude for. It's not an empty platitude. It's they if I take this jerk out and I'll feel the fresh air hit me, and when I feel the fresh air hit me, I'm appreciative that I'm enjoying that fresh air.
Yeah.
But to me, it's really important, you know, to do what you're talking about and sort of take stock and say, yeah, I'm pissed off about this, but let's do an assessment of all the
Yeah.
great things that are going on,
Right.
and recognize, not ignore the things that could be challenging
Yeah.
because they are, and they vary from person to person, and it's all relative. But I think that
Yes.
exercise is really healthy because it could recenter us.
I mean, it's crucial. It's a crucial skill
Yeah.
and trait to be mindful and
Hmm.
appreciative and grateful. It's missing. It is missing in that whole education system. And it's like you have to discover it, when and yeah, we all have to discover what we enjoy. That's
Yeah.
for sure. But on a on a human level, we should try as an exercise again, not at the end of your life, but at the end of every day, like you said,
Mhm.
look
Yeah.
back and think, oh, I appreciate this that happened, and right now, relaxing, whatever, having a beer.
Yeah.
There are far worse situations occurring in parallel right now across the
Yes.
planet. We're sitting here talking about guitar and having drinks, and it is a highly desirable situation.
Yes. That's a great way to put it.
but
Right. And
but it's not taught enough. It's not even about teaching. It's just about awareness, of being aware of
Mhm.
what to be grateful for and how to do it. I think that's by exponentially more important than, again, think about when you were in junior high and you went to history class and you had to memorize this date of this insignificant thing to simply copy it down to a test, to pass that test, to get the good grade and blah blah blah, and then it's immediately out of your mind. That
yeah.
kind of stuff, I get it, but at the same time, there needs to be classes that are saying, this is how to appreciate, this is how to be grateful. And as far as I know, that simply doesn't happen, at least
I
in
mean,
general.
I would like to see a little philosophy taught, which is
Mm-hmm.
akin to that,
Yeah.
not just in college, but in the younger years. So, but yeah, it's so important. And I will say this though, I have some hope for the younger kids out there. By kids, I mean say 18 to 28 or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. You look at these little van life things where people are sort of dropping out and driving around in their vans. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's sort of akin to that kind of attitude, and I'm going to couple it with the fact I've got two kids. My kids are 19 and 21, so
Mm-hmm.
they're in that bracket there,
Mm-hmm.
and they are, depending upon their socioeconomic status. A lot of them are sort of spoiled and protected,
Mm-hmm.
but the pandemic perhaps corrected what we did wrong as parents by overindulging and protecting and helicopter
Sure.
parenting and participation awards and all that kind of stuff. And
Sure.
they might come out of this. They might come out of this with the right degree of sort of responding to adversity and having that appreciation for what you were just talking about,
Yeah.
and have a nice influence on our culture for the things that matter. It seems
Sure.
like they're responding to the excesses they witness and saying that's not for me. The tiny houses, you see that on social
Sure.
media.
Yeah.
So maybe that'll start happening. But I'm a firm believer that if you've got an idea, something that you think will bring you joy,
Mm-hmm.
it's not even the getting it; it's the trying for it. But the
Exactly.
hard work, the dirt under your fingernails, as I said earlier, to
Yeah.
get it. It's not just saying I want, and you fill out an application, and suddenly you've got joy.
Right.
It's so much more than that. But I think it can happen.
Yeah. Again, it's like I said, it's not about, well, at least for me, what I've learned. I can only speak of my own experience. It's not even about looking back at the end of a life. It is about looking at the end of a day
Yes.
and saying, did I did I enjoy myself? Did I spend my time wisely? Did I spend my time the way I wanted to? I would say for most people that answer is no.
No, the almost everyone correct. I agree with you.
And
Um, yeah,
it's just it comes from not knowing how to even approach what you want to do, like you said, not knowing how to try, because there's not there's a lack of understanding how to appreciate the trying and the
right,
failing and the trying again. I mean, if you're going to be a musician, get ready to fail. Get ready to not get gigs. Get ready, being a musician, you hear the saying it's feast or famine.
right.
And I mean 2020 was famine. I
That's a
can
pure big ass pile of
absolutely,
famine. Yeah,
musicians are highly adaptable though
right.
because we're creative. You
Hmm.
know, when whatever, I can't remember the dude's name, but the guy that created Napster.
Right. Yeah.
And listen, I will never be sorry if that guy has a bad day because he took a massive part of our income away like
right.
that,
Just like that, for
and
his
it
own
showed.
selfishness.
Well, yeah, and it was set up though. It wasn't just he opened the door, but he didn't build the door. The door was built
The
by,
record companies built the door.
well, yeah, and the way that, how did we get music before
Right.
streaming? Yes, you could buy records, you could buy tapes and CDs back in the day, but anyone could just turn on a radio and you got endless music 24/7. So
Yep.
it was devalued.
Yeah, you're right.
How
And
people got music was devalued.
and that's always been historically an issue about art, and then how do we take we need artists. We need you,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Um, and how do we appropriately remunerate you so that you are in our lives and giving us that which we need?
Hmm.
And it's really almost like an age old question,
Yeah.
because in your purest moments, and hopefully in most of your moments, you're not thinking about the remuneration piece, but you do need to eat. You don't need a
Yeah.
big house, you don't need a fancy car, but you need to eat. You
Yeah.
need to get health insurance. You need to
Yeah.
see a doctor now and then. Um, and so you need to survive at a reasonable level to give us those things we as a society need. And people talked a lot about it during COVID. People would binge watch Netflix or what have you.
Hmm.
Those are artists who are the story writers or screenwriters or actors or
Hmm.
scoring, the
Yeah.
musicians scoring the movies. So we as a society need artists,
Oh,
and,
sure.
and how do we fairly and appropriately remunerate you um, in a reasonable way? And and every so often, you guys are really mistreated. You know,
Well, it's, again, it comes down to being adaptable. Again, Napster made everybody, the whole industry changed, and artists had to adapt to that. 2020 destroyed, I mean, the main way any artist makes a living is touring.
right?
I don't
Yeah,
care if you're Taylor Swift or me.
yeah,
Without the gigs, what are you relying on? 0.00001 cents from Spotify?
right. Because
You know
all
that.
that's been gone for over a decade, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, streaming, you need such massive quantities of streaming numbers to really get anything from it. It's quite a joke. But again, don't get me wrong. Once the artist gets some traction and you can start gigging regularly, it's a nice
Yeah.
living.
Right. Right.
But it takes a lot to get there. In other countries, like in Europe, the government provides a stipend for art
I did.
to help artists, you
Right.
know? Not in this country. This country has been so poorly managed for so long, but we're not going to get into politics and stuff. But you know, the bottom line is a musician, or if somebody's going to be a musician, you have to believe it
Right.
can be successful, but it's so easy to get sidetracked. I went to Musicians Institute after college.
Right.
I moved to LA. I went to
GIT. Right.
GIT. Yeah, I couldn't tell you one person in my GIT class that's a musician now.
Really.
Full. I mean, on their return, on their tax return, it says
Right. Right. Right.
musician.
Yeah, they still
It's
play a little, but not as their vocation.
it's a side thing, or it's a hobby or whatever it is, and it's because again, yes, you gotta pay the bills, but you also have to be willing to sacrifice. I
I want to
I
hear about that. What you did from age 10 on, like how hard you worked to become what you very modestly said is competent. I've done enough reading to know I appreciate modesty. I do. But you're very respected in the guitar community, so you're very competent. What was the work like as a kid when you had that singular purpose?
Well, again, to me it wasn't work,
Okay.
and it still is not work, even when it is work. I'll
Yeah.
say, all right, I got to go work, but it's what is work? I'm sitting in front of my studio computer here, and I'm creating music.
Right.
I've got an acoustic record coming out in a few weeks. The work involved in that: writing, recording, mixing, mastering, shot a video, edited the video. I transcribed it, putting out a tab book. That's all a lot of work, but it's doing what you love,
It's
you
joyous
know.
work.
So again, if you love what you're doing, yes, there are countless hours involved. There's no shut
Right.
off. There's no nine to
Yeah.
five. It's
Right. Right.
24/7 forever, and you have to
Yeah.
be okay with that. But as a kid, it was just fun. I was
Right.
like,
Right.
I loved what I was doing, so I did it every day, to the detriment of grades, usually, to
Hmm.
the detriment of a social life. I mean, I always had friends, but I chose not to be that social, not to go to a lot of parties and such, because I would rather stay home. I'd rather stay home and play and get better, because I just envisioned from such an early age that this was what I was going to do on whatever scale, whatever it was. Um, but it takes a lot of sacrifice, when you're on that journey after you get out of your parents' house, and you're living in an apartment with seven other people, and the most extravagant outing is going to get a burger somewhere. There's no vacations, there's barely a vehicle. It's you're splitting a electricity bill by seven ways. It is what it is. That's the way it was. uh when I was in GIT out in LA at first, being barely 21 and coming out of college. So I went from high school to college to GIT, and I had little jobs here and there to make some spending money, but I had no gear. I had no money, enough to go through school, and and that was it. But I was okay with that. I didn't care about
Right.
anything else. I just wanted to play and get better. But again, it's not just that. I was proactive about producing a product from the start. I put together a full original band. We were in a studio when I was 13. We produced a
Wow.
full length record, and then did it again when I was 16. And in between there, we gigged this person's party and backyard thing here and there, and the occasional actual gig. It's much different now, but just because you're practicing something and getting good at something doesn't mean anything. You have to produce. You have to produce a product for consumption. and that's songs, that's records. So you know, as long as that is understood, this doesn't happen by osmosis. It doesn't happen by magic. You can be the best player on the planet if you haven't produced anything. It's all for nothing.
Well, it's. I think what I'm hearing is that it's not just sort of rote, mindless practicing. It's a higher order of thinking, which is creative thought and planning into how am I going to turn this into a means by which I can bring joy out to others and
Yeah.
satisfy my dream.
Right.
So, you can't just watch one of Dave Weiner's videos only and learn how to play guitar, which you can do and you should
Yeah.
do because they're good. I watched a few of them. My favorite one. What was the one you were playing a telly and you were doing a funky thing, which I liked. Um, yeah, you've done a
There's
million. You wouldn't, but
so
but it's
many.
not
Yeah.
it's not just that. It's not just you said it. It's not Dave Weiner won't tell you what to do. First of all,
Hmm.
and it's not just doing what you think Dave Weiner wants you to do, but
Hmm.
it's the higher order of mental thought, which is it's physically exhausting at times, is to
Yeah.
really think through what can I do, and then you implement. You come up with a plan.
Hmm.
But hard work in the absence of thought is almost lazy on some level. It's not really, but it's
Sure.
sort of kind of
Yeah.
it's
You gotta.
cognitively lazy, I suppose.
You just have to understand how are you going to make any money. You. It's about networking. It's
Yeah,
it's a ton about networking, but you have to have a product. I'll give you the perfect example.
right,
When I moved to LA, within a few days, I got an internship,
right,
and that was proactivity. That was me
right,
saying I need to start meeting people in this town and in this industry.
right, right,
I can lock myself away and become the best guitar player ever, which I'm. There are a billion guitar players way better than me,
right,
but that doesn't matter if they don't know you. So
right,
that
right,
happened to be with Steve Vai's manager, and that was not known to me when I applied for the internship. I
well,
didn't know who this was.
right. You knew it was someone in the industry that we had. Who was it? I'm trying to think of who it might have been Dave Gellis. I can't remember who it was, but it was someone who basically said, um, "I'd rather work with people who aren't assholes." You
Oh,
know,
sure.
and I'm going to guess that when you're a young kid, fresh out of college, and you're in LA at that internship, in addition to whatever amount of guitar prowess or competence you had at the time, you were something other than an asshole, right? Like,
Number one rule is you just have to be cool.
yeah, yeah,
You know, you can't again, and to that point, you think about touring and living in a bus with other people for months.
right,
There can't be one person that is an ass. You know,
yeah,
everyone it's like a family. You know,
right.
so it's not always peachy, but you again, you could be the best at whatever you are. If you're difficult to work with, you're not going to get any. You're not going to get any gigs.
Right.
But back to my story from having that internship, that's how I met Vi,
Yeah.
and I never put myself in a fan position. I never put myself in a hey Steve, you got to listen to me. You know, I
Right.
never
Right.
did that because that's immediately going to put you in a different perspective
Mm-hmm.
in his mind, in anybody's
Yeah.
mind. So I
Yeah.
let him eventually come to me and say, "Hey, you know, I know you're at GIT. I'd love to. You have anything I can listen to?" And I said, "Yes."
That's
Because
beautiful.
I knew I had to produce something, and I had to have something to give to people.
Yeah. So
You can say,
your earlier planning set you up
yeah,
beautifully for when you eventually began networking.
yeah, you have to. It doesn't matter what your industry is. You have to produce something for consumption. That's all it comes down to.
Right.
It does take a lot of sacrifice, but I don't want anybody listening to think that it's anything other than awesome.
I
That
would
sacrifice is fun. That sacrifice, maybe fun's not the right word, but you don't mind it. You know,
satisfying.
yeah, you don't mind. Oh, I'm not going to this party because I'm going to stay home and write. I've got this song. Like it was always, I wanted to stay home. I
Mhm.
wanted to keep working on these things. You know, I don't want to buy this car because I want to save money and get another, guitar or piece of gear or something that I can use for my trade
Right.
and stuff like that. At least that's the way that I always, uh, well, for the most part, have thought. Nice things are nice, but they come and go.
Yeah. And
It's
and the funny thing is, so the nice things, let's say you buy a really nice car, right? And you keep it for 6 years, right? Whatever. And then on year 7, what do you have? You have the memory of the use of that car after you get rid of it. It's a
yep,
memory. That's all it
yep,
becomes. So you're creating these memories by touring, by creating music, by having great interaction with the folks who are going to your shows,
yeah,
with your fellow musicians,
yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah,
So it's all the same. You're building the memories that give you joy
yeah.
today, yesterday, and tomorrow, I suppose. You know?
Yeah, and that's all we have. It's a collect. Life is a collection of memories,
Yeah.
along with the present moment enjoyment.
Yeah. Right.
We have, because that's all that exists. The history is something we drag with us. The future doesn't exist. So
Yep.
there is only one thing, and it's right now, and right now, and right now, and right now. And
Right.
we have to choose wisely how to spend that time to produce enjoyment in the moment, but also fond memories. And life is never about just that, of course, but that's what we can strive to do. And as guitar players, I just try to encourage the right perspective and the right path, because as you said, let's talk about like learning guitar. There's no video, book, teacher, school, anything that is going to make you a good guitar player. They are all there as resources, but the user has to put in the time. That's why I say, I can't. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Yep.
It's the exact same thing. We got to
Right.
have the right perspective as to how to get good. You have to have the right perspective as to how to make a living with your guitar.
Right.
That means going, like the holidays are coming up, right? If that means learning a bunch of holiday songs and standing in a hotel lobby for 3 hours playing that by yourself, guess what? You just made some good money playing guitar. It's the perspective, It's, oh, that's not a good gig. Well, how are you spending your time in this moment? Do you have a guitar in your hand? Yes. Are you making music? Are you making money? Yes. Okay, you're not playing you're not playing the Met for 4,000 people with your music, but at least you're doing something, and that's on the way to hopefully the greater goal.
And then you look at the folks who play the stadiums. Look at that picture we had of Mick Jagger. He was somewhere down south, and he goes alone to some bar to be happy. Did you see that picture?
No, I
No
didn't,
one
but
recognized him. He's just there in a baseball cap,
uh-huh.
and he's just standing alone at like a high top outdoors, like in some beer gardenish kind of thing. And here's a guy, who has a career playing stadiums, and he's getting his joy from becoming anonymous and enjoying a smaller venue.
Yeah.
And it's funny, every time I'm at, which has been forever, I'm at like a stadium level concert.
Hmm.
I yearn for a little place in Memphis or New Orleans
Sure.
or New Hope for that matter. I've been still trying to get people together to go to John and Peters, which I love to go to.
Sure.
I'm sure you know John and Peters.
Yeah.
It's just this wonderful. The ceiling's like 6.5 feet high, and it's smoky, and it's with COVID. It's kind of tough, but
Tiny little place. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, it's great. So you're here as a resource for people. I'm loving this conversation. I could do 5 hours with you on it because
Uh,
it's
well,
beautiful.
I appreciate that, and I'm enjoying it as well. It's just I think of the things that I wish I knew
Yeah.
30 years ago,
Right.
um, just to help streamline the process a little bit more, and then beyond that, to help stay focused.
Yep.
Because what happened with social media was ingestion overload and also
Yep.
distraction overload, to the point where what's the trend, and it makes artists move towards that trend and they lose
Yeah.
themselves. And then they start moving from trend to trend and they become aimless and they forget their own identity. And then
Yeah.
before you know it, 10 years go by with no productivity, chasing trends and all that nonsense. So, the right perspective and the belief of what you are doing. And, yes, life is not stagnant. Will, the only constant is change. But that doesn't mean succumbing to trend after trend. Adapt, yes, but the perspective, the right perspective, just hold your course, ingest what you want, and make it yours and do with it what you will. I think that's the stuff that a lot of people need to hear now.
I couldn't agree more. So I got to tell you, it's time. I'm just looked at the clock right now. It's it feels like it's 5 minutes. We've been talking about three-quarters of an hour already.
Yeah, I'm good for a little bit longer.
Okay, good. Let's keep going. I'll try to keep the pooch as quiet as we can go, as we can keep him. I'm almost out of chips right now. That's what I've been bribing him with. Now he's trained me, but he doesn't know that the bag is
Exactly,
almost empty.
exactly.
And I'm not looking forward to what my night looks like with a puppy with a bag of potato chips in him. We'll figure that out later. So let's talk a little bit about gear.
Mhm.
You've been a PRS guy forever. And I read online, I don't know if it's the red guitar I'm looking at right now, but there was a relatively new PRS Strat that you were talking about in one of the interviews I read. Um, that I think it was a John Mayer Strat.
Yeah.
Is that the one I'm looking at?
No, that's a Fender Custom Shop 62 reissue or something like that. The Silver Sky is next to it though over here.
Oh, could we see that?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I mean this is the PRS Silver Sky. It's the John Mayer model. It's their version of a Strat, and
Yeah, it's beautiful.
it is 50 to 60% less than most Fender custom shops and
Right.
exponentially better, in my opinion, because I have owned multiple that guitar again. I'm just giving you as an example that this red one is a beautiful guitar made by Fender's custom shop.
Yeah.
It is more than twice the cost of this,
Wow.
and I've had to take that. I've had to take that to be worked on.
Right.
That's the thing about PRS. Out of the box, anything PRS is outstanding, and the quality is amazing. Um, it's if you're into Strats,
Yeah.
forget the preconceived nonsense of this is PRS ripping off Fender. Uh, it's astonishingly ignorant, but it's an outstanding S-type guitar.
Yeah.
And I would highly encourage anybody who's into Strats to check it out because it's a Strat, but it's PRS build quality and not Fender, and Fender has problems.
Yeah.
Anybody will tell you that.
They've always for 50 years. You know what I love? I love the 3-on-3 headstock that just looks so funky with a strap body and it works.
Yeah, yeah,
You
and
know, that's a
again,
cool look.
it's like so much of the internet was poo-pooing the Silver Sky before they ever saw one in person, before they ever played one.
Right,
And
right,
that's the
right.
superficiality of humanity, and it is nonsense. But when you pick it up, maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't. When I picked it up, I was blown away. I mean, I continue to use this guitar a ton. As far as S-type guitars go, this is my go-to. Despite I've had so many Fenders over the years. Now I'm down to that one, and guess what? That one is for sale.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. And the thing is, one of the things I read, and not only have I read it, I've seen it, is that you beat the shit out of your guitars in terms of bending strings and the whammy bar and all that. So you need a guitar that can tolerate all that from you.
Yeah, I mean, like this yellow-ish guitar over there,
Yeah.
that's a seven-string PRS. That's been on multiple Vi tours for the last, however many years. But I'm playing with Steve Vai, and I'm doing unison lines and harmony lines with Steve, and a lot of them were just beating the crap out of the guitar. And that guitar doesn't have locking, it's not a Floyd Rose or anything, and it's
Right.
it's awesome. You know, a guitar that's well set up is going to serve, you know, the right purpose. But the Silver Sky is great. I've been a PRS artist not forever, but only since '09,
Right.
and they're just awesome people. You
That's
know, and that,
important
that
too. That's really
that's
important.
an endorsement is about the relationship. You
Right.
know, again, it goes back to basic. In any industry, it's about the relationship. And Paul, everybody there is just so cool, and they're just great people. They've been a fantastic company to work with over the years. You know, I play a little bit of everything. You know, I've got Gibsons. I just got this Kramer. I just got
Wow.
Kramer is
Like,
coming back.
yeah. Do you know who we had on the show? We
Who's
had
that?
Henry Vaccaro on the show. Do you know Henry?
No.
He used to own Kramer back in the day.
Yeah, I was gonna say he was the partner, right?
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
and he's the guy who worked with Eddie to create that iconic, the red and white striped guitar. But before that, when I was a kid at Seagert Music, I got one of his old aluminum neck with the tuning fork end,
Right.
and I know he's got the new Vaccaro line coming out, and he has new aluminum neck guitars that are going to be coming out, which is
Interesting.
pretty cool stuff.
Interesting.
But he
Yeah. Very
figured
cool.
out the whole weight issue because remember the whole issue with them is the neck was 1,000 pounds, and you're kind of like this the
Yeah.
whole time. So he's apparently engineered his way around that. So it's neat. You know, it's not going to be under the Kramer banner because I think Gibson
Right.
owns Kramer now.
Right.
But it's almost more iconic to have Henry's name next to it because
Yeah.
he's the guy who
That'd be
did it.
very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was honored to have him on because I was at age like 12. It was probably my seventh guitar or something like that, or
Hmm.
13, whatever I was when I got it. But yeah, Kramer's a cool company, and Gibson saved them, I guess. Right? They were not at that point. They were not succeeding. I think.
Yeah. I think Gibson has owned them for quite a bit,
Yeah, 20 years maybe.
but it's laid dormant.
Yeah.
You know, but they're coming back. So they started reissuing these overseas,
Okay.
and from what I understand, there's a domestic iteration coming back,
Okay.
which will be fantastic. But you know, I've got this Steve Vai tour coming up, and I was like, you know what? Yes, I'm gonna take my PRSs, but I was just looking for something fun, you know,
Yeah.
something fun to take. And I've got some friends at Gibson, and I was like, what if you know, what if we took that body and put that neck on it, and et cetera.
Oh,
And
so they put that together for you.
you can buy a similar guitar, very similar guitar, but
Okay.
on the street it doesn't come with the reverse headstock.
Okay. Gotcha.
It also we did some electronic stuff to it as well, but I mean it's aside from that, it's the same. You can get that graphic,
Right. Right.
and it comes with the Floyd, it comes with the EVHD tuna, it comes with a trem stop in the back, and I think they're coming out. If they're not already out, they are coming out. I just was like, it'd just be fun to take a throwback
Yeah.
out on tour, you know, because I started playing in '86,
Yep.
and you turn on MTV and there's, you know, all these players playing, you know, a lot of different guitars, of course, but Kramers and custom graphic Kramers were always something that stood out. So, you know, I was just jonesing for one, and yeah, they're
It's a cool looking guitar.
it's actually a fan. I haven't played a Floyd equipped guitar in. I was an Ibanez artist for the first 10 years of my touring career,
Okay.
but I and they're great people as well, great guitars as well. But I, you know, I
Right.
started moving away from like locking tuners and Floyds and all that kind of stuff. I haven't played one since probably '08 or something
Wow.
like that. And I still stand by saying that they're not necessary if you have your
Hmm.
guitar set up right, because my PRSs take the beating just like, I mean, I'm literally on stage playing what Steve Vai is playing with
Right.
some of those lines, doing the same thing with my whammy bar that he's doing with his.
Right. Because you
You're
guys you
not,
trade the same licks.
yeah, you're not going to get the same leverage and the same pull up, but for more, you know, for general purposes, it's just way easier. And I think the tone on a non Floyd guitar sounds better.
Right.
That's
Uh,
just me, though. Again,
That's
I
because
certainly don't
you're
know for
taking
sure.
advantage of what the body is contributing a little more to the resonance, right? Is that what you think the difference is?
Well,
It's
you've
not
got
cutting you off.
no, you got PRS will tell you where does the string touch the guitar?
Right.
The nut, the tuners, and the bridge. The
Right.
saddles in particular, but the whole thing.
Right.
To have more metal clamped down
Mhm.
on that, and to have the bridge a lot of times with less than ideal alloys,
Right.
it can do stuff to the tone. Is it better? Is it worse? That's for an individual to decide.
Right.
Um, Less is usually better as far as what is touching the string.
Hmm.
But again, there's no right or wrong at all. I don't want
Right.
any listeners to perceive that at all. Uh, it's not about that. It's about the individual choice. I'm just saying my experience has shown if I'm not using a Floyd, I usually get a better tone. But this guitar rips. This is a shred machine and it's a rock guitar. It's got one bridge pickup. It's awesome. It's a lot of fun.
That's very cool. And what kind of amps do you use these days?
Friedmans. These three amps are all the same thing. The Friedman small box 50s. If there was a perfect amp, that's it for me, obviously. When I'm on tour with Vai, I do use the 100-watt amps that
Okay.
Friedman makes, which are called the BE100s. Um, but I started playing Friedman in 2012, and I've had a few of their different kinds of amps. But these small boxes, for my music, for my playing, there's nothing I could ask more from an amp. And to the point where it has really weaned me away from using most pedals. Most of the time, I'm guitar straight in. Um, I still enjoy a clean boost. I love fuzz pedals. Every once in a while, I'll use a tube screamer or something like that. I love the. Are you familiar with Analog Man, Mike Piera?
No. No.
Well, I mean, he's one of the pedal gurus and tone gurus of our time. He's up in Connecticut, and his company offers mods, and of course, they build their own original pedals. And it's just the knowledge that he has. Anything you're going to get from him is outstanding. So he mods tube screamers and Boss OD1s and stuff like that. I'll throw one of those on the board, but if I didn't use any of that stuff, I'd be completely fine because of Dave Friedman's amps.
That's really impressive. Now tell me about the innards of his amps. Uh,
This one is two EL34s. It's 50 watts. It's two channels. He calls the channels on this amp, one is the plexi channel and one is the BE channel. The
okay.
BE channel is, and his whole line of amps is based on his experience modding Marshalls. And so these are all basically a modded Marshall platform, but without any of the Marshall issues.
Right. Right.
I've got plexis, but they're stuck in a closet because for me, these things just do what I need them to do. I would have to take those Marshalls and have them modded and et cetera, et cetera. Um, but the BE channel is a higher gain. It's got saturation, but it's not like a boogie. It's not uh, a super overdriven amp in the
Okay.
sense where a lot of super saturated amps, high gain amps, you have the note, but then you get all of this, what I call just musical junk around the note.
Right. You want your note pure.
These amps are just, and these amps are called players amps because they're, which again, take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Um, they're not going to help you. They have a lot of saturation, but it's not oversaturation to the point. If you put a dimed overdrive pedal in front of a cranked plexi, anybody can play really fast because there's so much compression.
Right.
There's so much almost oversaturation, compression, and even a little bit of noise, well, a lot of noise. Um, it is what it is. These amps are not that. These amps even at the highest gain setting, are still crystal clear, pure, overdriven sound.
And
And
that puts more on you, right? Because you're naked. You know
yeah,
that you're playing is you know if you have a musical misstep,
yeah.
we'll hear it, right?
You'll hear it for sure, but that's why
Yeah.
they're called players amps. They leave you to do all of the playing. They're not going to help that much. The plexi channel is if you turn the gain down, it's the clean channel. But if you turn all the gain all the way up, it's like a 50-watt plexi. But again, without the flub of a Marshall and without the poor EQ of a Marshall. Um, yeah, they're. That's why there's three of them sitting here. I run in stereo, and then I have one for backup, and they are absolutely outstanding.
And I think I read they have the Celestion speakers in them.
These cabs, I do use Friedman's cabs, and they've got a mixture of
Okay.
Celestion speakers, but there's a mixture on top. There's greenbacks, and on the bottom there's V30s. So that's I've in the past run a cab with greenbacks and a cab with V30s, but Friedman started doing this combo, and I was like, it's like he's building amps just for me. They're so exactly what I've always used, but such a refined version of it. I can never speak highly enough of Dave Friedman and his amps. They're just outstanding.
That's really something. Now, what are some of the other guitars that are your favorites?
I mean, again, I've got a bunch of different Gibsons. I've got now I'm down to one Fender Strat and one Fender Tele. Um, I've been weaning off my Strats just because I'm putting the money towards a vintage one. I've gone through enough new ones to recognize they don't serve my purpose.
Right, right.
For Fender in particular, again, that PRS Silver Sky is better than any Fender I've ever played.
Now, I saw online that, and I didn't see if it was a Fender Tele or perhaps a PRS or some other Tele, but say it was yellowish in color, but I could be getting that wrong. You were playing with such a nice pure tone. You were doing just a real funky thing,
Mhm.
and both with the notes and the little chords, and you were doing almost like a real staccato-ish um, rhythm on it. But it was a nice looking Fender, and I
Mhm.
got the sense you were doing nothing to it, but just putting it through an amp, and it
Yeah,
sounded really nice.
I've only ever owned one Telly, and I was just it's here. I think it's in the case in the closet, but uh, Tellys are fantastic because they're just planks of wood with a
Yep,
couple
yep,
of pickups in them. They're so simple, and I
yep.
love that just kind of purity involved in them.
And they're old. You know, everything about it
Yeah,
is old. Yeah.
yeah. Mine is a 52 reissue that I bought in sometime in the 2000s. Um, Yeah, that's a fantastic guitar. It just depends on my needs. I don't think I have a favorite. I've never had a favorite. It just depends on what I'm recording that day. If I'm on tour, what does the set list call for? Um, and with Vai, it's 7 strings, etc. But I love the classics like I've got a Les Paul here, a couple of Les Pauls, a SG, a 335, um, those are all fantastic. PRS's guitars, again, they're outstanding. I love, a little bit of everything, a little bit of Fender, a little bit of Gibson, a little bit of PRS, and again, an
Fun
occasional,
guitar.
yeah, fun guitar like a Kramer. I mean, I don't own anything except aside from this Kramer, which just came the other day.
Right.
Um, I don't own anything that's not. Well, I do still have a few Ibanez left,
Right.
and
Right.
they're great guitars, but they're not my go-to. I never play them. Depending on what I need for that day, it'll usually be a PRS or a Gibson, or or a Fender.
Right. Now, so when you pack up, so you have a tour coming up with Steve, right? That's
Mhm.
coming up.
Yeah,
National, international.
it's everywhere. Yeah, I mean, only the first leg has been announced, which is a U.S. tour,
Right.
but It's 22 and 23 all over the world.
Wow. So first of all, so what'll you pack in terms of your gear? So you're gonna pack what we just talked about, those same guitars, or is it a little different?
It's 100% up to the set list.
Okay, right,
What the
right.
set list requires is what I start packing as far as gear. And usually, again, with the Vi gig, I got to take the seven strings. So I'll
Yeah.
take these two PRS seven strings, and then I got this Kramer just to take something fun out on tour. I might be taking the Gibson out. I've been jonesing. I've never owned like the odd shaped. Gibson calls them the designer guitars.
Right.
Explorers, V's,
Right, right.
Firebirds, those kinds of guitars. I've never owned any of that stuff. Um, and the problem now is all these companies are so back ordered because of COVID. It's difficult to get things. But yeah, what I take, the amps, the cabs, the pedal board, the guitars, it's all reliant on what the set list demands. So
And what?
I'm learning the set and I'm starting to get that idea of what I need to take. Like I said, I'll probably be using, these Friedman cabs. Instead of the 50 watts, I'll probably play the 100-watt Friedmans.
Right.
I don't know what's going to be on the pedal board yet. And yeah.
And
It'll,
what does life get like when? So right now you're hanging out in your house in Pennsylvania in your studio, right? I
Mhm.
feel like it's downstairs. It could be upstairs for all I know. But
No, it is upstairs, actually.
oh, I got it wrong. And what happens to life? When you're in hotels and I don't
Mhm.
know, like what happens to your life when you're on tour?
The secret to touring is taking your life with you.
Okay,
So all of my habits and things I do at home, my routines, I try and take them with me on tour. There's always an adjustment, but that's the secret to not being homesick and to being. I'm going to be gone January to April, and to be gone for 3 months is not something most people could ever do. You have to understand how to make it happen, and part of it is taking your life with you, as I said, your routines and such. We have a pretty rigorous touring schedule, which I prefer. I don't like a lot of days off when I'm on tour because at that point I'm like, I should just go home if I'm going to be sitting in a hotel. So we never have more than one day off at a time. Um, but those days off are very well received because we're usually playing 6 or 7 nights a week, and then we'll have one day off, and then another 6, 7 nights of shows and etc. But
and then
again,
what? Yeah, go on.
I was
Oh, go
just gonna
on.
say it's what I enjoy. I can't sit at a desk. I can't
Yeah,
do 9 to 5. I can't have those kind of parameters around me. Part of life and the enjoyment of it is the freedom, and I have never been able to be that kind of person. Um, so the adventure of being gone and being in a different city nearly every day, that certainly suits my personality and my uh, upper level ADHD, and it just suits me perfectly. So yes, I love being home. I love the comfort, as anybody does, of their own home and such. But I'm made for touring.
that is great, and it sounds like a very appealing existence. So I would think, you've got to prep, you got all sorts, you have to do rehearsals and all that, but at some point, you like if you're in a new city, you have to have some free time where you could explore
Mhm.
a little bit,
Yep.
get
Yep.
yourself a Guinness at the local pub if that's what they have, so you can
Absolutely.
enjoy the city, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been touring now. This 2022, when the tour starts, that'll be my 23rd year of touring. So doing it over and over again, you get through the phases of tourism.
Right, right.
Where it's like, okay, I've been to this city 17 times, and I'm just gonna chill now, and that's kind of where I am now. I'm
Oh,
also
that's
very
great.
much more focused on producing new records right now. So my downtime, aside from as you said, going out for a drink or meeting up with some friends or going for a coffee or whatever, I'm content to just be on the bus or backstage, working on music.
And that's great. So you'll have enough equipment with you,
Hmm.
or even if it's just a laptop or something, you could.
It's all you need.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need a laptop and an interface, and I'm in the middle of choosing. I need another laptop, and I'm choosing one that is fairly. I'm probably going to get a cheap Apple, MacBook Air or something. You can absolutely produce the highest quality record on a $1,500 laptop, and
Isn't it,
cheaper. It's just what you enjoy. You just need an interface, and you need a laptop, and you need some know-how, and that's it.
isn't it crazy that back in the day, a Fostex 4-track cassette recorder was maybe $400?
Oh yeah,
And it
yeah,
was fun, but it had really shitty sound.
yeah,
Um, I mean, I look at it back nostalgic with, I mean, I feel nostalgic when I think about it.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but for 3 times the cost of that, a little over 3 times the cost of that,
yeah.
and you have something that could, it's studio quality. Isn't that
Oh yeah,
crazy?
yeah. It's amazing. I mean, I didn't have the Fostex, but I had a Tascam Porta Studio, which
That's
is the same thing.
fancier.
You know, basically the same thing. It just
Yeah,
sucked to work with. It was, I did what I could with it, but it's nothing like what we have now, all these years later. And it's the technology just keeps getting better. Things keep getting cheaper. Well, not this year, but
right.
it is great. It is everyone. The playing field has very much so been leveled, and anybody can produce pro music in a bus, or at home, wherever you want
Yeah,
to. Yeah,
good stuff.
cool.
It's really good stuff. Well, I have to say, this is I've genuinely enjoyed this.
Awesome. Likewise. Me too.
I'm
Me too.
glad. I'm glad.
A lot of fun.
I want to thank you so much for joining us. It's really been a
Thank you for
pleasure
having
having
me.
you.
I
Uh,
appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we will watch for you on tour. We can't wait to air this show, and I just want to
Cool.
wish you a good night. Again, thank you so much for joining us.